I'm calling in the creator to the CEO who crave creating community and cash to create it like a boss. With me, Katrina Julia, as your host, multi-passionate entrepreneur, creator, and CEO who has walked from fear to faith, self-hate to love, corporate to calling, and continues to, with experience in 7+ industries, 7,000+ creators and startups, to creators to Fortune 500 brands, including Google, NBC, Victoria's Secret, and more. If you are ready to create it like never before in faith, wellness, wealth, marketing, business, travel, and more, this is the show for you. If this is your time to have freedom in all forms as you create it like a boss, let's create it.
How I manifested $10,000 in one day. So I still remember this as if it was yesterday. I was working in corporate America. I was working with an oil and gas company. And if you've tuned into some of my past recent episodes, I talked about how I had at one point gone through 17 different recruiters to get to working as an accounting support training manager at an oil and gas company before I was a chief audit executive, and amongst many other stories. And at this point, I had already been with this oil and gas company, Hydrochem, for roughly about a year. They had placed me in a number of different projects and initiatives, from developing the training department to help the company go public, to setting up learning management systems, to hosting a 4-week back-to-back training for roughly over maybe 100 to 500 people in a 3,000 plus people company. And so they were charged with communicating that training and training at their locations after attending the corporate training. And in any event, that and developing a new system, testing a new system, training a brand new team. So you get the picture. Fraud cases. So you get the picture. I had my hand in a number of different pies, which is often how I thrive the best. It's a repeat pattern in my life when I look back, whether it was in college, when I was, for example, going to school full time, taking at one point 18 hours in person, 9 hours correspondence, so 27 hours in one semester. I was also working at a credit union part-time, but generating over full-time numbers and full-time results. I was president of Millennium Models, a brand new organization we had started on campus, and vice president of program council, and student government association secretary, and had a very active social life, made time for all my friends, all the things. Typically Thursday nights after we got done with school, that was the night to party at Sam Houston State University. In any event, I share all that to say you can see the parallels to now and how my soul is fulfilled and how I thrive. And you can also see the parallels to back then. That even though I was working at that time at one company, I also had side hustles all the time. I was a side hustle queen. I was traveling probably over 80% of the time then, although I had a home base in Houston, Texas at the time. And in any event, you can see how Linda, my boss at the time, and the second or third CFO at the time, because the company went through CFOs like people take showers. Seriously, I'm not kidding. Eric. And they recognized how I thrived, and they utilized and celebrated my gifts, talents, and abilities, and would ask me if I wanted to be involved. They thought my, gifts, talents could be put to use, that I would be good in XYZ, ABC. And oftentimes what would happen is my gifts, talents, and abilities would stumble me into something. Like when I was doing audits, I ended up quote unquote stumbling into and discovering frauds, whether it was a payroll fraud of several hundreds of thousands of dollars, whether at the time it was a billing fraud of basically charging the company for certain things, the company being a third part, no, charging us internally for certain things and payroll, but not charging the company, but still costing, basically on a per diem basis, costing the company over $500,000. That was one of the cases that I dealt with that went to external law enforcement. This one went with FDLE, the Florida Department of Labor and not investigations, Florida Department Labor Examinations, I think is what it was. In any event, you can see how that's a common theme when I'm fulfilled. So in this event, I had, my hand in all these different things, was thriving. And at this point, I had already gone through, those endeavors with the trainings, with fraud cases, with training a brand new team, with IT systems, etc., with the company, and had repeat proven results over and over and over, and had already generated, both with my direct efforts, my indirect efforts, and with the team, well over $7 million to the bottom line for the company at the time. And they had placed, we were halfway through, me, a couple coworkers, Allison, Tina, and Mike. They had placed us on a project that was going to impact the company another minimum $5 million. That was not counting other indirect benefits. That was not counting future year benefits. And it was a standardization project. So for those of you that are familiar, similar to like a Six Sigma type project, but it was really focused on standardizing operations and accounting, while still implementing and making sure that the people involved and the operations involved were impacted as least as possible, meaning we were honoring operations and we were listening to what worked, what didn't work, while still challenging them in many, many different ways, and working together, and not, hey, it's the corporate big bad dog coming to tell you what to do and we're not listening to your take on things, which is often very valid in many, many companies and industries. And in fact, that's where companies often lose millions to billions of dollars, is by not listening and not honoring and not integrating. So in any event, we were doing this standardization project. And in essence, every week, one of us, there was over 50 locations around the US. And this is how I got to visit well over, likely, because of this project and several others within this company, I got to visit well over 30 different locations easily. I've traveled to about 40 different states now and 45 countries-ish. So that we would go, basically, typically fly in on a Sunday. We would have a very pointed initiative for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, typically fly back Thursday night, be home Friday, work from home Friday, do whatever, Friday, Saturday with family, Sunday, friends, whatever. I was training at the time, also fun fact. I was training at the time for my first Century ride at Lake Tahoe. And at the time, I was also 55 plus pounds heavier. So you can imagine my determination and drive for that. So I was training for that on the weekends, traveling back and forth every single week for this project, the standardization project that we coined Branchise, because the branches, they were branches, branches of the company all around the country, all around the United States. And so we coined the project Branchise. And we were over halfway through at the time. And at the time, the four of us, actually, it was three of us at the time. It was me, Tina, and Allison, and then plus three other consultants. Okay. And of course, as most of us know, the consultants were paid much more than we were as employees. And it was us three plus the three consultants, and Mike came on later for phase 2. So we were wrapping up phase 1. We were putting together the findings. It was me, Allison, Tina, Eric, and Linda in the CFO's office. And I think at that point, Allison and Tina had actually left because they each had meetings or different things, because we were still doing like our quote unquote regular jobs on top of this, right? At the time, it was crazy. I was working like 80, 90-hour weeks. And in any event, they had left. And I remember it was me, Linda, and Eric. And we were like wrapping up. And I was like, yeah, no problem. I'll wrap it up. I'll finish the notes. La-di-da. And we were wrapping up the findings, and they were really, really happy because we had actually exceeded the results, and I made the comment, I said the phrase very, very, very intentionally, because this leads us to how I manifested the $10,000 a day. And this is what's even more profound is I didn't just manifest the $10,000 for me. I manifested for everyone around me. So listen to what I'm saying. I manifested it for me and everyone around me. I included everyone in, just like I do in my 7 ways to make 7K in 7 days, and a number of other things that I create. And so I said to Eric and to Linda, I said, we could continue with the 3 consultants, and I knew more or less what they were making and etc. I said you could continue to pay them ABC 1 2 3, or you could take half of that and give myself, Tina, Allison, and if anyone else comes on board, an additional minimum. Or actually, I didn't say minimum. I said an additional, because I did the math in my head and I did the ROI in my head. I said, give us each a $10,000 bonus for everything that we've already done, and then add in a kicker for our annual bonus, because we also had annual bonuses. And I said, and you will save about half of what it would cost you to keep them on for the rest of the project, not to mention the travel. You can easily share that with the board and get approvals, I imagine, within less than a day to give us those checks. And Linda, I remember, looked at me like, whoa, because you guys, many, many times in my life, I've even been amazed at how bold I am. And at various ages, like no holds barred, unapologetic. And oftentimes like things are coming through where even I'm shocked and surprised. Like, how do I know that? Or how did I have that divine download? Or how did I have the confidence or the Godfidence to say that or this or that, And Eric kind of smiled at me like a little smirk / smile and was like, something like, I really like that idea. That's a really brilliant idea. And I said, yeah, you can even say you came up with it. I just laughed, because the game is oftentimes, you guys, and this is a quote. I can't remember who said this. Maybe Zig Ziglar. I don't remember exactly right now. But in any event, that when you don't care who gets the credit, oftentimes, that's usually even more when you make things happen and when you end up getting the credit after all. Especially when it's good-hearted people. Now, granted, a lot of times in that company, different bosses or different people would take credit for things or inadvertently, but then it was so funny. It would always come out, like people would know, like, oh, Katrina did that. Because the other people had been there for years and they had never come up with some of the stuff. So that's the thing you also got to realize is people know people, and trust that the creator and creation, regardless of what you believe, things come to light. Things what happens in the light gets exposed in the light. What happens in the dark gets exposed in the light. Things usually end up coming to light at the perfect time. So any event, the very next day, you guys, all 3 of us got called to Eric's office, and we all got handed $10,000 checks. So it was actually less than 24 hours, because I think I said it around 3 p.m. that day. And then the very next day, I think it was early in the morning. So he had literally submitted the approval, gotten the checks cut, literally the same day, because for us to have the checks that morning, accounting was barely in. People that would have that authorization or whatever were barely in at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. So either they cut it first thing in the morning or they already cut it the night before. I didn't ask, but I already knew oh my God, this was actually manifested and created and generated in less than 12 hours. So that was one of my first instances of seeing the power of faith and feeling and focus, or put in other words, the power of belief and the power of behavior. And when I'm saying belief, 100% belief, I remember it was yesterday that when I said it, I didn't have any doubt whatsoever that it was going to come to pass. Like, I know it was bold and snarky, and I'm sitting here talking to people at the time that were likely double my age, maybe even some triple, but I had no qualms because part of it was recognizing and knowing my value and the value of the people that, were on the same team, and recognizing and knowing the return on investment that was going to come from this approach of giving us extra value, and recognizing like, okay, we needed the training and the knowledge and et cetera of the consultants for this phase of this project for this period of time. And it's not to say we did use them again for something else. And I even said that this will free them up to do something else that you want them to do. And then that's when we added on Mike. And literally, you guys, I still remember going up the stairs, talking to Allison, and like giddily, both of us holding our checks and laughing. And me saying, she was like, "Oh my God, like, I can't believe like you said it and it happened, and it happened so quick." Because she knew, like, we were tight. We traveled together. I remember we had one trip to California where we went to Alcatraz. We traveled up and down the coast in a convertible, like from one refinery to the next. I mean, we were work besties, basically. We were, like, from so many different ways. But then I found out some interesting things later on. But anyways, I digress. To where in essence she wasn't what she seemed, and I trusted, above and beyond. But luckily, like, people saw through it. Once again, back to my point of light shining a light. What happens in the dark comes to light. All these different things. So in essence, I remember, like, with that check, I saved some money. I paid off my car. Like, at the time, I still had, it was actually my sixth or seventh car I'd had before 30. It was my dream car. It was an Infiniti G35. I think I still had like $4,000 left on it or something like that. And I paid it off with part of that check. I actually kept that car the longest I'd ever kept a car. I kept it like 8 years after I paid it off, and took such great care of it. In any event, so back to how I manifested, the 10,000 in a day, not just for me, but for others too. So like, that's the power of faith, feeling, and focus. That's the power of belief and behavior. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about, the Creator to Cash toolkit and all the value inside of it, even for free, and the 7 ways to make 7K in 7 days in the bundle, because I have these reference points that remind me of my power. And, and all these different stories are coming to my mind now as I'm putting something also super special together for you guys with my online course creator journey, and also not just my online course creator journey, but also alongside being a multi-passionate creator and CEO, and, creating a lifestyle brand and creating online courses alongside freebies, alongside webinars, alongside, retreats, alongside work with brands. And as I was crafting this story earlier today, I realized, like, I was reminded of the power of story, because I already had this episode on my list to do, how I manifested $10,000 in one day for me and others. And then as I was writing out emails, as I was putting together my time blocks and my timesheets, all these other stories started coming up. Because the thing is we often forget our own value. We often forget our own stories that show us answers to prayers, oftentimes that we have voiced, and oftentimes that we haven't. Like, that speech in Proverbs 18:21 tells us the power of life and death is in the tongue, and those that love it will bear fruit. Like, I literally spoke it and bore the fruit, the direct fruit, the exact fruit I spoke in less than 24 hours. And so that starts to tell you about the faith, the feeling, and focus. And as, me, myself, and I talk about this all the time with you guys. I don't ask you to create it in any way, shape, or form that I don't already do, that I don't walk the walk. And if you've been tuning in the show, that I've invested, hundreds and debt, and my family has invested hundreds, tens to hundreds of thousands to likely millions of dollars in me as a vessel, as a human, from, schooling to undergrad and grad, which I definitely had some, scholarships and different things, to entrepreneurship, to programs and things with people like Brendan Bouchard, Shailene Johnson, Jasmine Star, the list goes on and on. And right now, one of the programs I'm in is Mind Valley. Because my soul kept pulling me like to art of manifesting, and deeper, even though I've been doing training on EFT, and I talked about this on the show with EFT versus EMDR and going through EMDR for a year in therapy. Even though I've been doing these practices, my soul kept pulling me deeper. And like, for example, I'm on, I think, day 19 on Art of Manifesting, although really technically in the natural, I should be like on day 9, but I've been pulled to accelerate it, to literally leap, quantum leap, be reminded of 1,000 years is like a day and a day is like 1,000 years, Isaiah 55:8. And then the other thing I was pulled into is an EFT course. I shared them in stories yesterday. I think her name is Patricia, I think. Anyway, it's the only EFT course in Mind Valley right now. It's amazing. And one of the EFT sessions we did yesterday that really had me release so much was on safety, around safety with finances, around safety and all these memories that I was reminded of, say in childhood, that in effect felt like bullying or trauma or PTSD. And I know many of us have that in a multitude of areas in our life. So I say that to say, as I was diving in deep into the outer work today, because I dived in a lot on the inner work yesterday and the day before, it like all these different stories and all these different reminders were coming up. And far beyond this one, how I manifested $10,000 in a day. And I realized that the most important person we get to remind of our value and our worth and the answers to spoken and unspoken prayers is ourselves. And we get to believe in our dreams more than anyone else. Because oftentimes it's our belief that magnifies and attracts. Like, look at every single story. I mean, Apple, Steve, and Steve Jobs and Wozniak. They believed far before anyone else ever did. Phil Knight and Nike. Read the Shoe Dog book if you haven't yet, where Phil Knight tells the story. Michael Jordan. He has a quote that says something to the effect of, he's only succeeded because of the failures that he's had. Oprah. I went to one of the other live events I went to that was incredible was Oprah's The Life You Want with one of my good friends, Melly and Priscilla. And it's absolutely like when you look at the common thread of every single story. I mean, Beyonce, look at all the initiative, the drive, the determination, which leads me to discipline. I'm going to talk about that. That's a whole nother episode because that's something too, like the discipline and the alignment and divine discipline was, I am divinely disciplined was actually my phrase for last year. And it also brought up a lot and it's continuing to spill over into this year. And this year is I am worthy. And those two, along with the past words and phrases that I've had divinely downloaded since 2018, those two are especially catapulting because last year I'm divinely disciplined and a lot of worthiness issues came up. This year I am worthy, and then a lot of discipline issues are coming up that are challenging me to align further, to align in faith and feeling and focus, and to see where I'm misaligned, to see where I'm self-sabotaging. And that's one of the reasons why I time block, which is another episode. You can go back and dig through like some past episodes. I talk a lot about time blocking because I started tracking my time in 2024 on a time block, and it's literally a game changer, you guys. It reminds me of how before I lost over 55 pounds, I used to track my calories. Like that was one of the things I started doing, to track what calories I had, if they were great calories, because let's be real, you eat eggs and oats and salad, and whatever the calorie intake is on that is nothing like, even if it's the same exact calories and you eat, 2 donuts. I mean, the nutrient value in those comparisons, I mean, there's no comparison, right? So it's kind of the same thing with time. Like, where are you investing your time? and tracking, like I'm tracking my time, like a champion, because I desire to be a champion, a creator and CEO. So I'm tracking my time. And my perfect? Oh no, at all, not at all. However, it's August now, and I've been doing this consistently. I haven't stopped for a single week since January of 2024. So you can imagine the momentum that's been built out of that and the clarity out of that. And one of the things, going back to how I manifested 10K in a day for myself and others, is I started adding in, and probably in the last month or 2 months, repeatedly. Oh, like I received $700 today. Oh, I received $1,000 today. Oh, I received $3,000 today. And then one of the other things that yesterday in the art of manifesting that came up, that I'm also give you a tip, put in alarms. I already have alarms on my phone that align to like my dreams, desires, co-creations. But one of the things in the art of manifesting that Regan Hilliard challenged us to do is set in like several alarms on the money that we're manifesting. And I was like, oh my God, how had I not done that? Like I had kept the comments kind of vague and they weren't really super specific, even though my dreams and desires and things that I speak out and my recorded prayers, which I listen to almost every single day, are very specific. I was like, how did I miss that? Like, for example, my first alarm is I'm infused with love and light and attracting $12,000 in August. My husband is on his way to me very, very soon. He is everything I've prayed for and more. We are best friends and purpose and passion partners, blowing my mind. Another alarm. I'm priceless, purpose, profitable, and pursued by my king. Another one. I'm opening up my email and I have $700, $1,000, and $3,333 average days. 10:07. I'm easily receiving $13,000 now in August 2024 for retreats, courses, and community. 11:33. I am aligned to receiving $12,000 now in August 2024 with ease. I am creating and receiving wonder, wealth, and love I've never experienced before. 3:33. I have received, past tense, meaning it's already happened. Listen to the intention. $30,000 aligned to my purpose by September 30th or sooner. I am world team with Herbalife by September 2024 or sooner. So you can see how now, like if I would have read them to you before, they were very beautiful, but they were not as clear and not as specific. So that's the other gem I wanted to drop with you that I am discovering in my own journey. And please leave a review on the show. I will shout you out, drop your Instagram handle, all the things. Speaking of, tag me on @KatrinaJuliaFit, @FitLifeCreation, @CreateItToday. And as always, remember, create, transform, and inspire. You are born to.